Hello and welcome to this week's episode. This is a unique one and it will be a pretty brief one because we have an announcement to share in this episode. And also, this episode itself is not really the one that I want you to listen to today. And there are going to be some people who turn this on where what we're sharing isn't relevant because you're doing well financially. You have a lot going on for yourself. You've got the emergency reserve. You're still gainfully employed with no prospects of being laid off. And if that is the case, I'm going to invite you to just scroll through our past catalog and find something relative or relevant, I should say, to your financial picture that is still helpful on today. So I'm biased, of course. I feel like we've shared some good content over the years. And I do feel that if you're in a good financial position, that there's another episode you haven't heard from New Money, New Problems podcast that you can find that's of value to you today. But if you are in the other camp that we've talked to several times over the last, couple months where you are really struggling financially, maybe you or a partner has lost a job. Maybe you are fearful that you will lose your job. You could be a furloughed worker, a government worker, a military member. Well, this episode is for you. One of the things that we've been talking about over the course of the government shutdown is how do we help? And one of the ways that we thought would be helpful would be to literally just open up our calendar for people who are in need during these times. So what we've decided is over the next 90 days, we are going to open up a calendar where we're going to have one meeting a week for general members of our community who just no specific financial need, no payment required, nothing expected of you in terms of what we're going to ask of you. You just need an hour's worth of advice, an hour's worth of, hey, Brenton, let me bend your ear and get your help on whatever I can financially. So there's no set agenda, just anything that you want to talk about, you can come talk about it. Next group that we're going to open up our calendar for are furloughed government or military workers, or just anybody who has lost their job. If you have been laid off, if you've been part of a reduction in force, if you are a government or military worker and you still have your job, but you're not getting paid right now, we're going to open up one spot a week for the next 90 days for people in that circumstance as well. If you want to take advantage of this, or you have someone you know who you feel would benefit from this, you can literally just go to newmoneynewproblems.com/help, and you'll be able to book an appointment on that link, no matter which category you find yourself in. So once again, newmoneynewproblems.com/help. Now, there is more to share beyond that because if you haven't listened to some of our past episodes, we do have several pieces of content that speak to people in these financial situations. And I wanted to just go through some of them very briefly. I'm not going to go through the whole episodes, but just highlighting some of the stuff in the episodes we've shared over the course of the past 3 years that speak to these circumstances. Recent episodes are pretty easy to find. We did one just a few weeks ago titled What to Do When You Run Out of Money, literally. We also shared an episode recently called Preparing for a Financial Doomsday that shared some similar resources, but with more of an emphasis on when you do have access to funds, how do you make sure that you don't find yourself in a position where you run out of money? We shared an episode on still living paycheck to paycheck on $250,000. We shared a webinar from severance to security where we talk about the steps that you can take if you have either already been terminated or if you're negotiating a severance package from your employer. We shared what to do right after you've been fired, 5 ways to restructure your debts, 5 ways to take advantage of lower interest rates, which is relevant even for those who are in a positive financial situation because the Fed this week did decide to lower interest rates by 1/4%, which will have an impact on everything from private and federal student loans to mortgage rates to rates that you would get on a car loan. 5 signs you need to reassess your credit card debt, and 2 proven strategies to get out. Does loud budgeting work, which is something that might come back into the public sphere? Loud budgeting being the concept of being open and transparent with your friends about your financial goals, even when they conflict with what they're doing socially. So, you go out and your friends want to have drinks as a group, and you say, hey, I'm actually going to not do that tonight. I'm really trying to save money on how much I spend going out for this reason and that reason. And then lastly, optimizing your debts as you build your emergency fund. Because what I'm seeing very frequently right now is people who are looking at their circumstance and they're saying, hey, I need to pay down my debt as fast as possible because I'm worried about my future income. And I would actually argue that the reverse is true. You need to build up your reserves and try to position your debt so you can hold off as long as possible on repaying them until you've established your reserves. And in that episode, we share all of those details as to why that's my opinion on what you should do in times like these. So again, we'll link to every single one of these episodes in the show notes. If you have already listened to them, maybe you find one that's worth a re-listen. And once again, if you find yourself in a situation where you feel you would benefit from an hour of my time, then I'm more than happy to give it. We're more than happy to offer it. And you can sign up at newmoneynewproblems.com/help. And I will see you guys next week with a more lighthearted topic. At least that's my intention. And I encourage you to not only share that link or use it yourself, but also to share this episode and some of the ones we just mentioned with someone who might benefit from it. See you next week.